Oh, hi there, everyone, and thanks so much for joining us today for the Walters Claw in Boma session on drive revenue growth, engage clients, and help them navigate policy changes. So now I'd like to hand you over to Charles and Michelle. Over to you.
Thanks, Susie, and thank you everyone for joining us today. Business Fitness New Zealand has been working with Boma now for over 2.5 years. Boma is a digital marketing communications platform for accountants with ready-to-share content for emails, social posts, and blog posts. You'll find business fitness content in the Walters Claw Premium Library in Boma, which you can share with your clients. And welcoming also today Charles Clark from Boma.
Thanks everyone for joining us. Today we're going to look at some of the strategic goals and challenges facing firms at present from some recent Walters Claw research. Then we're going to dive into how firms can help their clients navigate the changes as the government passes its 100th day, then explore the benefits of database segmentation, and then onto the importance of timely responses, and then lastly having a plan to underpin everything. So in terms of that research, what did it say, Michelle, about firms' strategic goals at present?
Well, we looked at the 2023-24 Walters Claw report on accounting evolution, where accountants listed their top 3 strategic goals. 57%, no surprises here, 57% said they were going for revenue growth, 40% said they wanted to improve operational workflows and standardized processes, and 32% said they wanted to improve employee effectiveness. Now, the same report had some reflections on how firms saw themselves achieving those goals.
It's interesting, as you said, sort of unsurprisingly, it is always revenue that tops the list. And I pulled out this line from the same report because it makes clear that those firms who are expecting to meet or exceed their revenue targets are prioritizing client engagement and building out their advisory services. Now, the good news is that there has been an escalation in demand from clients for business advisory services in the last year or two. But I think it's important to point out that in order to take advantage of this, firms are going to need to embrace digital transformation within their firm, which delivers both productivity and efficiency gains. And the point about the deliverance of those gains is that it's going to then enable them to expand their offerings and thus open the doors to that potential revenue growth. And in terms of kind of driving home this message, another piece or another question from the research uncovered that 80% of the firms who expected either low or no financial growth in the 2024 financial year considered themselves to be either mainstream or lagging behind in technology updates, so really lagging behind in that digital transformation. Michelle, shall we take a look at those challenges?
Yes, absolutely. So in that same accounting evolution report, accountants on both sides of the Tasman identified issues, and of the top 5, 49% said that it was a challenge to obtain correct data and information from clients on a timely basis. 43% said that work-life balance for accountants and their teams was an issue. 41% said attracting and retaining talent was a challenge. 40% said that finding the time to identify opportunities to provide additional value to clients was an issue. And another 30% said that keeping track of changing regulations that impact the practice's bottom line was an issue for them. Tony Alexander picked up some of these themes, especially as they related to staffing resources in the accounting and business advisory sector, in his February 2024 report for Mint Business Insights. Now, that report looked at challenges facing businesses across the board and at business confidence, or the lack of it in different sectors, with the knock-on effect of price sensitivity. It was a bit of a mixed bag here. While continuing uncertainty and price increases seem to be making some businesses pull back from professional accounting advice, for others, uncertainty is driving them towards it. So, challenges for businesses could present opportunities for accountants. Analyse your client base for what's affecting different sectors. And what that looks like to us is that firms may be able to address some of the challenges facing them by helping clients to navigate change. And the Walters Claw Premium Library in Boma can help there. Susie, could we switch over to Charles' screen to look at some of the content?
No.
Switching.
Okay, is that showing up?
Sure is, Charles. Thanks very much. I can see your
Terrific.
screen.
Yes, we can see your screen. Thanks a lot. Now, the news cycle never stops, but it's been really intense over the last 6 months. Some of the changes, we're still waiting for the legislation to come into effect, and in the meantime, the old rules still apply. So news comes through largely unfiltered. It can be hard sometimes for business owners to work out the likely impact of changes for their business. And accountants can play a real role here, just filtering the news that's likely to have an impact on particular client groups. There's been a lot of news about changes since the election and the first 100 days, which captured the popular imagination. And you could choose to give clients an overview of where we're at with those. Now, Charles is showing the article, What Policy Changes Might Affect Your Business. That covers the 90-day employment trial periods being extended, clean car discount and the ute tax being cancelled, fair pay agreements being cancelled, and the fuel tax changes. If you wanted to reach residential property investors, you might choose an article like What Property Investors Need to Know. And there's another more targeted article on interest deductibility as well. But with What Property Investors Need to Know, interest deductibility has been such a hot issue. And we're waiting still for the legislation to bring in the changes, but the government's just said that when the changes do come in, 80% deductibility will apply for the 2024-25 tax year. Now, just noting that until yesterday, the figure for the 23-24 tax year had been at 60%. That allowance will remain now at 50%. You could also mention other changes we're waiting on, such as changes to the Bright Line test and the removal of depreciation on commercial buildings and so on. So as well as talking about things that have been in the news, you also need to be able to let clients know about issues that haven't had so much media attention. Some changes have come in more or less under the radar, but they do have potential to seriously affect certain kinds of businesses and certain kinds of taxpayers. Now, a good example here is the changes for online marketplaces. That's something that hasn't had a lot of news attention, but it might have a wide impact. Thanks, Charles. So these changes may affect various client groups. They break down into two. From January, there are information disclosure changes, and from April, there are GST changes. From January, online marketplaces must collect and report information about sellers and transactions on their platforms. This makes income earning activity much more transparent to Inland Revenue. And the scope is pretty wide. It covers short stay accommodation platforms like Airbnb, ride sharing platforms like Uber, platforms where sellers share assets such as cars, caravans, parking spaces, storage, and platforms for personal services, things like graphic design, website creation, odd jobs like deliveries, pet sitting, furniture assembly, or trade services, which may or may not affect a larger section of your client base. If you do have clients who are contractors or just taxpayers letting out the family batch, or others you think are likely to be affected, you might like to give them a heads up. Remind them about declaring this kind of income. The first reports from online marketplaces are due to reach Inland Revenue in February next year, and they could be interested in undisclosed income for the 23-24 tax year. Even bigger changes come in April, when online marketplaces must collect and return GST on services provided in New Zealand. The scope's a bit more limited here than that applying for information disclosure changes, but it's still wide enough. It covers short stay and visitor accommodation, ride sharing and ride hailing, and food and beverage delivery services. So the change applies whether the seller is GST registered or not. It mightn't be such a shock for your GST registered clients, but it could be for your clients who aren't registered, and there are some special rules that apply for them. You can prepare them for this and sketch out how you can help. And if you think clients in this group are likely to be a bit more price sensitive, propose helping them through a transitional period. Charles, could we have a look at how you'd reach out to clients to let them know about the changes on this?
Sure, thanks, Michelle. So look, as well as being able to put this on your website as a blog, you can choose to send this out in a campaign. So if I quickly click on Deliver and Campaign, you'll see I've got options to send this out to my email audience, out to my social media channels, and for today, I'll just choose both. So we'll call it online marketplaces tax new, and that's just for your internal account purposes, so you know what you've been sending out. Now the next stage is to think about your social post, and you can see we've written one for you here. Now you may wish to insert a hashtag, and it could be your business name there, and then maybe some other couple of other hashtags like tax or New Zealand, SMB, things like that. Now obviously you're free to make any changes you want to the body of the social post. In this case, I think we'll just send it as is. And you can see down below, we've also got a full branded web page where the people who read your social post can obviously go through and read the full article and download the guide to online marketplaces. So the next stage is to just think about the different social channels that you're going to be sending it from. You can see here we've got LinkedIn, personal and business, Twitter and Facebook. And you can see here when I click on preview that the 2 or 3 changes we've made have come through, and this will be pulled through for all your social channels. Facebook is a little bit different. They don't allow us to fill a post on your behalf. It's very easy to get around. Just click on copy and paste, and you can see there that those changes have all come through as well. So now with our social channels done, let's have a look at email. And in this case, the first thing we're going to do is think about who we're going to send this particular email to. So if I click on edit and then show, and you can see here that I've got the option to either send it to all my contacts, or I can filter using tags. And I will talk about tags in a minute or two, just the importance of using tags and segmenting your database. But for this purpose, the demo, I'll just click save and close. Now let's think about what your email is going to look like. We'll go straight to branded template, and we're going to choose the full article. And because the content and Boma are all integrated, when you choose the template with the full article, the content and the image and any download URLs will actually be injected in here. And then it's just really up to you as to how much or little you would like to personalize it. I always like to recommend putting a merge tag in along with a greeting, and that will just personalize it. So we'll pull out the first name of all your contacts and then address it to them. Then obviously at the end, we've got the downloadable guide. So let's put in a quick ending salutation, a sign off, and then maybe add in a button. So obviously they can download that guide, but let's also say that they can contact us. And then we could send that through either to a URL link, maybe like a booking page, or it could actually either send you an email or a phone call. Just depends on how you like to communicate with your different segments of your audience and your clients. So once you're happy with it, and you don't want to make any other changes, even changes to the content, you can come through and check that the subject line and preview description are what you want it to say. We've made some suggestions for you. Obviously, you can edit or rewrite those. At this point, it's just, you can obviously preview the email, but then it's just a case of scheduling delivery. You can send it out immediately or at some time in the future. I'm going to send it to go out later on this afternoon at 4 p.m. Schedule, and then we're ready to go. Now, look, while I did just talk about the database segmentation, I didn't show it to you. And Susie, if we can go back to the presentation, because I would like to just focus on this for just a minute. Now, while email has been around since the 70s, it still remains one of the best ways to communicate with people. So obviously, once you've got your list, and this might be off the basis of your clients' emails, but you also may have some prospects in your database. You really need to think about segmenting them. So what I mean by segmenting is grouping them together into different sort of smaller groups, and then using tags to name them in ways that make sense to you. So an obvious one is to think of, you have your clients and then you have your non-clients or your prospects. Now, maybe some of them are zero clients, others are MyOb. You might also want to consider their industry or vertical. For example, people in the trades versus farmers versus retailers versus residential property investors, or perhaps it's even, they're an employer or a director or a trustee. So the point about segmenting them is that then you can start to send that segmented group or groups only relevant information. Now, if you think about sort of general emails that might go out, you might do a newsletter once a month. And look, that's fantastic to send to everyone on your database because it's a general roundup. It has news. It's probably going to be relevant, or at least one or two of the elements in there will be relevant to most people. But there are other times when you think, okay, I've got a specific piece of information and it's only going to be relevant to one or two segments of my audience. So there's no point me sending it to everyone, because for those people who it's not relevant, it's just going to bother them and annoy them. So let's just kind of use that segmentation to be specific in who we send it to. So Susie, if we can go to the next slide, please. And you can see here is a screen grab of the email campaign, which I was just showing you about online marketplaces. And I spent a bit more time here and I created a specific audience. And the tag I used in this example, and tags are specific to each of your firms, is for residential property investors. Now, the reason I'm going to send it only to this segment is because it's obviously highly relevant to them. In this case, from April 1, mixed-use asset rules relating to GST will be repealed, and the nominal GST proportional rules will apply where people have, for example, been renting out the family batch. So while you could say that this legislation also affects tradies, you may prefer to send tradies a separate email where you can play with the language. It might be a little bit less formal. Maybe the subject of the email is different, or maybe the call to action will be different to those who are under the residential property investor tag. The point here is that you can customize your emails to the specific audiences, which is going to make them more likely to engage with it and more likely to take the action you desire. In this case, being in contact with you, so that you can obviously, if you've already offered them that service, you can fulfill that obligation, or indeed talk to them about maybe a service that they didn't have, but you can obviously upsell them. Now, the point here is, you are sending emails to the people for whom it's relevant, but you're also freeing the rest of your database from receiving emails that aren't relevant. And in both cases, this is going to help underline your role as a trusted advisor who understands their businesses. And this is both in terms of what they need and what's important, and also what they don't need. Now, Michelle, now that we, in this case, have alerted clients to some of the changes that are coming, what are some ideas for how a firm might like to prepare and handle the process of addressing some of the inquiries that may come off the back of this activity?
Sure, thanks, Charles. Now, timely responses is, it's something that we all include in our KPIs as often as we can, but you can use Boma and Wolters Kluwer to get ahead of the curve by sending out social posts, blogging and emails, etc., and streamline the whole process of devising content and reaching clients. Now, it's important to plan how to do all this without creating a huge bottleneck for yourself. You will get client queries from what you send out, so handle them in a way that's both timely and time efficient. Make sure that your staff isn't overwhelmed by an influx of queries. So once you've worked out what you want to communicate and who you want to communicate with, delegate the messaging to your admin team, including monitoring client responses and campaign analytics. In team meetings, let the admin and accounting teams know that they might get client calls. They can triage the queries and refer complex responses and new business to client managers. Give your team a script of frequently asked questions with keynotes to hit and what services you can offer on the back of it. It's an opportunity to upsell and cross-sell and to expand revenue per client. Rehearse the response. Have the relevant fact sheets and client questionnaires ready to go. And identify which issues are hot button for specific client groups. Stagger your communications so that you're not broadcasting to everyone everywhere all at once. If you do identify potential high value groups, fine-tune a series of campaigns for them. And if you see issues that may potentially trigger a high volume of responses from more cost-conscious clients, staging is very important so your team and you aren't overwhelmed. Charles, could you comment in this environment about planning ahead a little bit more?
Yeah, thanks, Michelle. I couldn't resist this quote by Benjamin Franklin. I'm sure everyone is very familiar with it. But basically, what it does highlight is the fact that planning will ease the bumps in the road. It's going to allow you to consider your choice points when they arrive, It also forces you to sit down and think about your future growth, and that's of your business, your people, and you. So the way I like to frame it up, and I have heard this actually mentioned a few times over the years, and it's a really good way to think about it, is about a Rubik's Cube. And so when you try and solve a Rubik's Cube, you can't make every move in isolation. You need to plan for a few moves in advance. And if you think about all the little pieces, those are your tactics, and the plan is to get them obviously all lined up. And then when you have the block colors, when you solve it, those are you achieving your business goals. So in the context of today, when we talk about helping your clients navigate the change, you need to plan for how to achieve this. And that would be along the lines of how are you going to communicate with them and how are you going to educate them about the changes that are relevant to them. So from an education marketing perspective, because I think this is what it really comes down to today, make sure your planned activity relates to your business strategy and your goals, because that really is the best way to get effective results. And something we'll send that might help you with this is it's a simple template. It's a content planner and calendar, and we'll send it out in the follow-up email. But if we think back to those strategic goals, and the largest was revenue growth, you'll be wanting to focus on attracting and retaining those high-profile clients and upselling them on your services. So the point here is, when it comes to educational marketing and marketing in general, you want to make sure that you are visible to your clients and you're visible to your market, and not sort of being, invisible where you're waiting or you're in position of another competitor to come into town, so to speak, and they suddenly put a lot of time and effort into client engagement marketing. You find yourself on the back foot. So really, having a plan, plan of attack individually in terms of like, okay, some changes have come out like we've seen Michelle has taken us through today. How are we going to let the right people know? But equally in the slightly mid to longer term, what are we doing to engage our clients? What are we doing to educate them? What are we doing to tell them about the services that we offer, which obviously is going to help you drive that revenue growth? So look, Susie, I'm not sure if you've got any questions, but why don't we, before we get to those, just quickly take a look at how people can access Boma and Wolters Kluwer.
Thank you. So if you're already a Business Fitness subscriber, please ask us for the unlock code that will give you access to the Wolters Kluwer Premium Library on the Boma platform. You'll also need a subscription to Boma for this. Charles, what's the situation for businesses that are already Boma subscribers but not necessarily Business Fitness clients?
Cool, thanks. Well, look, you can, as Michelle said, get Boma for $99 plus GST a month. If you are not a Business Fitness subscriber, but you would like their content in Boma, you can simply send us a message in the support channel, and we'll switch it on for you for $40 plus GST a month. Equally, if you are, as Michelle said, already a Business Fitness subscriber, then your solutions manager will be able to give you that unlock code. Susie, I know we've been trying to do our best to sort of keep to the half an hour time limit. Are there any questions that have come through in the meantime?
Thanks a lot. Yes, there is one question. So let me just open up that questions panel. What I have in here is, thanks for the question. It's asking how often is the content updated in the platforms?
I'll start off on this, and then Michelle, maybe you take over. So the content in Boma, because obviously there's obviously Wolters Kluwer content and our own content with other partners. We update it every single week, and so whatever is happening in a specific time of year, whether it's around the budget or Christmas or sort of any other important times of year, we'll make sure there's always fresh content. Now, obviously, we are talking today about a whole lot of legislation which has just come out in the last few days, and I think that's one of the brilliant things about Wolters Kluwer is that Michelle and the content team there are always looking to sort of see what is on the radar and then making sure that the content is going to be there when it's required. And then I think also updating it as well, don't you, Michelle?
Yes, that's right. I mean, just today we updated the content dealing with interest deductibility after the government's announcement yesterday, even though we are still waiting on the legislation for that, but the media release came out yesterday. And generally speaking, the Wolters Kluwer Premium Library updates every week.
Now, just holding off for one moment because we do have a couple of moments spare, and Nicola has just put through this question here. Nicola has asked, if we already have a Business Fitness subscription, is the extra information on the Boma in addition to what's in Business Fitness?
Oh yes, so yeah, so you do get all the other accounting facing content in Boma, which you get access to as well. I think from a Wolters Kluwer Business Fitness perspective, the benefit of having that content in Boma, as I sort of demonstrated a few minutes ago, is because of the integration, you can send out, whether it's an email, social, or a blog post, you can send that in just a couple of minutes. There's no sort of cutting and pasting into, maybe a third-party email or sort of social provider. It's all kind of comes perfectly sort of streamlined and efficient. And I suppose that really speaks a little bit to that digital transformation piece we were sort of mentioning before. Taking advantage of technology to meet the opportunity and challenge of on delivering those advisory services to more clients.
Yeah, certainly makes it very easy to send out things like newsletters and have all your lists in there. All right, so I will end the webinar now. Many thanks to you, Charles and Michelle, for spending the time to share your expertise with us all today. Thanks very much, everyone, for attending, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks very much, everyone. Have a great afternoon.